Hi, this is Gumbo Craig. Greetings in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. May all glory be to the Most High God. Welcome to part 2 of 80 plus years of the Riverdale working. Today we'll cover the darkening of the Archie Riverdale universe by the Afterlife with Archie comic book series written by the man who was to become the showrunner for the Riverdale television series. Enjoy the accompanying slideshow. It is intended to complement, not necessarily parallel, the narrative content, although it sometimes does. So happy-go-lucky Riverdale and the sunshine and lollipop style kids of Archie Comics were laid to final rest with issue number 666. By the way, in that issue, Archie breaks the school record by receiving his 666th detention from Principal Weatherby for being late. In the future issues of Sabrina and Blossoms, there would also be the number of the beast on the cover. In the illuminated universe of entertainment, you just can't be good for goodness sake. You must employ the technique of sympathy for the devil, which became standardized in pop culture after the Godfather films had us rooting for mafia killers. Like the new Executioner Superman, actually a throwback to the pre-code original, the lines must be blurred between good and evil and morality relativized to the point of our suggestible disorientation. Unlike Mark Waid's comic book reboot, which is essentially a more sophisticated update of the Archie gang, the CW's Riverdale is clearly bent on slipping more and more into darkness. Just Google or YouTube any interview with any of the show's talents or creatives, and I guarantee sooner or later they will smilingly utter the words dark and darker, as if these words were somehow synonymous with really good quality or authentic. This shouldn't be surprising considering the showrunner for Riverdale, Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, from Archie Comics, is a Lovecraft horror enthusiast with a creative devotion to occult themes. This is clearly evidenced in his zombie apocalypse series Afterlife with Archie, which served up nearly a dozen issues of macabre fare since 2013, the success of which has encouraged numerous spin-offs. For those who believe that television's Riverdale went completely off the rails, the seeds for that metamorphosis into horror and psychodrama were cultivated years in advance in the comics by the man who would become Riverdale's showrunner. Afterlife with Archie is a zombie apocalypse, a decades-old genre which many find an apt metaphor for the stultifying lack of awareness of our transformation into a biosecurity surveillance state, somewhat along the lines of what China is now. Others believe the biological mandates that many were coerced into will render our thinking and feelings easier to manipulate in conjunction with other biocomputer interfaces. Many modern zombie stories are driven by the spread of some contagion that escaped from a lab and went worldwide, while the older stories and real-life cases from Haiti, as depicted in The Serpent and the Rainbow, emphasize the occult hypnotism and enslaving control of one human being by another. This Archie Riverdale zombie apocalypse is set off by Sabrina, the formerly innocuous teenage witch of comics, cartoons, and television in a more deceptively innocent era. When she steps over witchcraft's alleged boundaries and resurrects Jughead's beloved pet, Hot Dog, the victim of a hit and run by a now guilt-ridden Reggie Mantle. Reggie had been blinded on the road by bad weather and rage over humiliation at the hands of Moose for flirting with Midge. One good bite leads to another, and the end of the world is at hand. Veronica's mother soon dies in the story, yet another example from the pop culture world of parent death trauma, a ubiquitous theme. Archie is forced to kill his zombie father later in the story. On the run from Riverdale, gay characters Kevin and Ginger form the leading edge as scouts and archers, evocative of the twin Greek divines Apollo and Artemis. This is all the more significant because of an apparent increase in the Apollo motif in entertainment and the public arena. See the work of Casey Brown at Enter the Stars channel and the video here on Walking Out of Babylon entitled Apollo, Morbius, and the Venom Injection. Apollo is the bringer of both disease and the cure. There is also a great deal of Apollo symbolism surrounding Donald Trump, including artwork on the 66th floor of Trump Tower, where some of The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves was filmed. There has also been an uptick in Artemis Archer and Diana Moon Goddess symbolism, as in the Hunger Games series and in Wonder Woman. At one point in Afterlife with Archie, several teens start having similar dreams about Sabrina with Cthulhu in the abyss overtones. This kind of occult mythos often implies that the old ones predate Christianity and are thus more authentic. Biblical thought, on the other hand, believes Christ to have existed from the beginning as part of the Godhead, through whom all things were made. It doesn't get much older than that, no matter when things were written down or when God's plan for redemption reached critical mass with the Incarnation. Mr. Lodge demonstrates the uselessness of archaic tradition by insisting on sitting down for a traditional Thanksgiving dinner while they are on the run from brain-eating zombies. There's nothing loving about him or his traditional wishes. It is simply the pomp of tradition. This is intended as a slight of the least paganized holiday, which has been deemed controversial, and the Puritans who symbolize it now reduced to genocidal oppressors in some public minds. The disturbing incest undertones in exchanges between the Blossom twins in Aguirre Sacasa's Riverdale was first showcased in his Afterlife with Archie comic series. Cheryl appears to resist these apparent advances and suspects brother Jason killed her dog Sugar only for the benefit derived from consoling her later. This is the third dog killed in the story, and one begins to wonder whether this is a deliberate or unconscious reference to trauma-based mind control whose alleged refugees claim horrific sexual and other abuse, like the killing of a beloved pet when they were children, in order to deliberately fragment the mind and create useful alters or multiple personalities to serve as assassins, sex slaves, or intelligence operatives among the power elite. For further information on this disturbing but essential topics, you can look up the works of former victims Kathy O'Brien, Bryce Taylor, Natalie Augustina, and Kathleen Sullivan, as well as a good, relatively short overview by Tracy Twyman entitled Mind-Controlled Sex Slaves in the CIA. The Stepford Wives are even creepier than you thought. These multiple dog slayings could also be an oblique reference to variations on the Sirius mystery, which claims that the Sirius dog star is the abode of Lucifer. The Blossoms are the aristocracy with utter disdain for the commoners of Riverdale. Like the royals of ancient Egypt and not so ancient elsewhere, these aristocrats may find betting their own blood the preferred conjugality. In issue number 7, Cheryl comes back to the campfire covered with Jason's blood. She informs the group that Jason is now dead and that her new name is Blaze. Given the number of Masonic references since Archie's first appearance in 1941, this calls to mind the important Masonic symbol of the blazing star, a symbol for their god of enlightenment revealed to be Lucifer to the higher degree initiates. In issue number 8, there is a Bradbury Hotel where they have Christmas in Vermont. This is possibly a reference to writer Ray Bradbury, whose work was first published in the fanzine of Forrest Ackerman, later the editor of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, and erstwhile companion of Church of Satan founder Anton LaVey. The newly christened Blaze Blossom pulls the girls into a meeting and tells the truth about Jason. Betty's innocence and hope are destroyed. This is certainly congruent with our spiritual enemy's desire to contaminate, corrupt, and destroy all that is pure and positive in God's creation. It is revealed that in Riverdale's history, because of so many young men dying in World War II, the parents want to protect the children. Forsyth Jones and Franklin Andrews and Agnes Cooper went to the Greendale witches, who asked for 3 sacrificial children from each generation in return for the protection of the old gods, shades of Moloch, in the Bible. These children meet with horrible deaths. Fire and ice are mentioned, shades of the Game of Thrones books. Reggie leaves the group after telling Kevin his secret and walks into a group of lumbering zombies on Route 66. 66 has numerous occult meanings. It is the number of the Qliphoth, the fallen angels on the dark side of the Tree of Life in some Kabbalistic systems. It is also said to be the number of Apollo and was the number chosen for the route to get the gold in California. While traveling, I've noticed that there is an extraordinary number of signs across the country telling me that I'm 66 miles from somewhere. Reggie encounters Sabrina as the bride of Cthulhu, who offers him a restored Midge if he kills Betty and destroys their hope. Issue number 10 of Afterlife with Archie begins on Halloween in Los Angeles. The Chateau Marmont before the plague. This super posh hotel is darkly conspicuous for the fates of some previous inhabitants. Roman Polanski lived here for a time, before he was the inspiration for Nicki Minaj's possessing alter ego. He was director of the satanic saga Rosemary's Baby, and is currently a fugitive from drugging and sodomizing a 13-year-old. He resided at the Chateau Marmont with his Manson murder victim to-be wife, Sharon Tate. Another resident was the self-styled shaman and lizard king, Jim Morrison, the son of Admiral George Morrison, the man in charge at the Gulf of Tonkin incident used as an excuse to initiate the years of slaughter in Vietnam. John Belushi died there when injected with a speedball by Gordon Lightfoot's girlfriend, Kathy Silverbag. The real story of Josie and the Pussycats is told in the pages of Afterlife with Archie. Josie is more than a century old, looking like a teenager, and staying alive in each generation of music by occult means. She's a vampire. Her mother died in a back alley childbirth in 1906, and she is raised in an orphanage by a monster named Alexandra Cabot. Veronica's family, the Lodges, and that of Josie and the Pussycats' antagonist and manager, the Cabots, bear the surnames of Boston Brahmin families. Joseph Cabot, born in Salem, Massachusetts, of witch trial fame, exemplified the amoral rapaciousness of this blue blood caste in having made its fortune managing privateer shipping enterprises in slavery, rum, opium. Even Wikipedia acknowledges this. Indeed, these and the speedy Yankee clipper ships built to move these soul-destroying cargoes are the foundation of many Boston Brahmin and Wall Street fortunes. They were among the founding families of the global drug trade, and there is little reason to believe that they ever got out of the business. Dope is the biggest business the world has ever known. But even more important than the power of money is the power of pharmakeia, the Greek word used in the Bible for sorcery. It is from pharmakeia that the words pharmaceuticals and pharmacy was also derived. The knowledge of drugs was preserved in witchcraft for generations, and as every shaman knows, drugs open portals to the spirit world, although those spirits are not the benign, helpful, or controllable ones most practitioners believe they are summoning. Even in one of the old Archie comic stories, Veronica rather flippantly divulges to Jughead, "Oh, I'm a practitioner of the black arts." And in another, Josie is possessed by an evil spirit from the Cabot family crypt, located rather disturbingly in the basement. In the real world, the Cabots and the Lodges have been intermarried since at least the 19th century. Republicans, they often played the adversarial role against members of the Kennedy clan in the false left-right paradigm devised to divide and mislead the public. Henry Cabot Lodge defeated John Fitzgerald for the U.S. Senate in 1916, and John Fitzgerald Kennedy defeated Henry Cabot Lodge II for the same seat in 1952. JFK's presidential ticket defeated Nixon's in 1960, on which Henry Cabot Lodge II occupied the vice presidential slot. 2 years later, Ted Kennedy defeated George Cabot Lodge for this seat. Henry Cabot Lodge II worked closely with President Kennedy when the former was ambassador to Vietnam and the U.S. was deeply involved in that country's affairs. The Lodges and the Cabots in the Archie universe are the hyper-materialist and our self-proclaimed social betters. They believe we should envy them and defer to their authority. In the real world, these families and their peers have inflicted abject misery upon men, women, and children as they built their slave, drug, and financial empires, underpinned by warfare. For example, Britain's 2 opium wars were waged to forcibly addict the Chinese, who were trying to keep that poison out of their country. The Boston Brahmin family fortunes were made in the vicious cycle they created. The British financed plantation cotton and slavery, which was shipped to England for textile manufacturing and forced upon India, who sold Bengali opium to China to purchase the clothes on their backs. I understand that the Lodges and the Cabots were part of Archie co-creator Bob Montana's awareness in his high school years in Massachusetts. The great sin is portraying them apart from the human misery their fortune-making has inflicted on the earth. Prisons, orphanages, hospitals, and cemeteries are brimming over with the bitter fruits of a drug trade run not by Latino gangsters in ponytails with suitcases full of cash, but by bankers and merchants in Boston and London. In this Archie Riverdale series, we will examine the heart of darkness in Riverdale's introductory season on the CW. This is Gumbo Craig, and this is Walking Out of Babylon. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share if you are so moved. May you and those you love be blessed in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. All glory to the Most High God. Shalom.